What's up, guys? So I want to share you a very interesting story that I just found out about how Dr. Nick met Elvis. Now, story goes, in February 26, 1967, Dr. Nick met Elvis. Now this is how it happened. You know that Elvis first got the Circle G Ranch. That was his new project. He loved it. It was a way for him to get an escape from like the bad soundtracks, the bad movies he wasn't inspired in. Elvis spent a ton of money in this ranch. It was 10 miles south of Graceland in Mississippi. He's put a bunch of money in it. You know, Vernon hated it because Vernon was super tight with money. Elvis loved it. He bought horses for everybody, trailers for his friends to stay on the ranch with him. It was Elvis's getaway. He was doing the cowboy get up, you know, to the fullest. He had been riding every day, and Elvis was starting to have some problems. So Elvis's doctor that he usually went to wasn't around. So Charlie Hodge had met Dr. Nick at a New Year's Eve party, 1966 going into the 67, and remembered his name when Elvis's doctor wasn't around. So Charlie called Dr. Nick, said, "Hey, Elvis is having some problems. His doctor isn't in town. Can you come see him?" Dr. Nick's like, "Yeah, bring him in, bring him in." And but Charlie was like, "Hey, you know, Elvis, the ride might be a little too hard on him, you know, from what he was experiencing riding the horses, and he'd just like it if you come to him. You know, Elvis wanted you to come to him." So Dr. Nick's like, "Okay, Elvis, you know," or "Okay, Charlie, we'll go see Elvis." So Dr. Nick gets there, Charlie meets him, they walk up the driveway, it's all dusty and everything, and they go into Elvis's trailer. Well, Elvis is in the back. Elvis gets up, greets him with a big smile, introduces him to Priscilla. Dr. Nick said Priscilla was very pretty. And so then Elvis takes him back to a further part where there's more light. Here's the funny thing. I guess Dr. Nick says very bashfully, Elvis turns around, takes down his pants, takes down his underwear, bends over a little bit. Think about this. This is the first time they're meeting. And he said like Elvis was like embarrassed, he was like red in the face and stuff, but he was in a lot of pain, Elvis was, from horseback riding so much. It showed, well, let me read it to you. Elvis blushed a warm pink, turned around, wiggled his jeans down over his hips, dropped his underdrawers, and bent over slightly to reveal a severely reddened buttock, inflamed from a week of horseback riding. You know, Elvis went all in, whatever he did. There was also bright blistering on his inner thighs that seemed very painful to him. I treated the sensitive areas gently with a cool topical ointment and gave him a prescription for an antibiotic to avoid infection. He took the incident in stride but was obviously embarrassed. Think about it, your first meeting? After the treatment, he confided that he needed to leave the next day for what he called a fairly physical type movie. Then he said, "I don't think I'm gonna feel like going." So Elvis, you know, he's like, "Hey, I don't want to go. I don't want to go in the first place. I definitely don't want to go to this movie set now." So the funny thing is, Dr. Nick leaves, and then Elvis calls him because Elvis wanted him to go see Minnie Mae because she was having some trouble. What was it? He said that his grandma had a history of heart disease and been sick for several days. Dr. Nick went up there, looked at her, checked her out. Just then, Graceland gets a call and tells Dr. Nick that Elvis wants to see you back at the ranch. So Dr. Nick goes down another 10 miles back to Mississippi, meets Elvis. Elvis says, "You know, I need you to call and let them know that I'm not going to be on the set for a few days." And so what happens is Elvis calls, because Elvis, you know, didn't like the confrontation and this stuff. He had to call Colonel. And so Nick says that Elvis called Colonel and really quick gave the phone to Dr. Nick. And with the kind of a little grin, he gave it to Dr. Nick. Dr. Nick says, "Yeah, Elvis won't be able to go." Colonel's like, "Make sure he gets here as soon as possible." So Dr. Nick leaves again, and just as he's pulling out of the driveway, the guys chase him down and say, "Hey, Elvis wants to see you again." So he's like, "Hey, at least I saved some money on gas." Elvis takes him back, and Elvis bought a bunch of trucks for all the guys. So he got Dr. Nick in his truck, and he took him and said he wanted to show you the ranch. Elvis had 163 acres there. He showed him the whole ranch. Dr. Nick says he was very talkative. Remember, this is 1967, so you know Elvis doesn't have the sideburns growing out again. He's looking good, you know. And Dr. Nick said he was really very talkative, good conversationalist. And Dr. Nick said he got the impression that Elvis just kind of wanted to talk to somebody outside the group, you know. And Elvis, you know, kept himself kind of sheltered, but he got a little bored with the conversations with the guys. And so anyway, the story ends of their first meeting with Elvis saying thank you, and Dr. Nick says, hey, do me a favor, don't call me again. Elvis thought it was a joke, but Dr. Nick's like, no, I'm not joking. You know, and he said that's what the start of their 10-year relationship was from till 1977. Anyway, I just got this book from a friend of mine. She sent it to me, and this book really is a great follow-up to the book that I just did a review on. And I hope you like it. I want to share some stuff with you, and stay tuned for further Elvis updates.